Hello everyone, today we'll be talking about the next level in interpreting the arterial blood gas, and in this we'll discuss about how chronic disease affects your ABG interpretation. In the previous lecture, we understood 5 steps to reading any arterial blood gas, and I would encourage you to go back and feel very comfortable before proceeding to this lecture. The limitations of the previous ABG interpretations were that in all the cases, we took normal as pH of 7.4, PaCO2 of 40, Bicarb of 24. However, patients with chronic acid-base disorder, the only normal they have is pH of 7.4. The PaCO2 and Bicarb will compensate for each other depending on what kind of underlying acid-base disturbance they have. So let's take an example. We have an advanced COPD patient with CO2 retention. His pH is 7.4, but his PaCO2 is 60, and he is renally compensated with Bicarb of 36. Let's say this patient develops COPD exacerbation, PaCO2 rises up to 70. So that would make the pH fall down to 7.3. Bicarb will increase by 1 because of the acute metabolic alkalosis compensation for acute respiratory acidosis. pH will increase slightly, but it will stop at around 7.31 or 7.32. So this patient really has acute respiratory acidosis with acute metabolic compensation on background of chronic respiratory acidosis with chronic metabolic compensation. But most of the times you're not aware about how much CO2 retention does this COPD patient has, and you're just given the ABG to interpret. So let's look at the ABG and try to interpret as we learned before. Since your pH is less than 7.4 and PaCO2 is 70, this is respiratory acidosis. If you just look at the acute compensation, your expected Bicarb is 27. Your anion gap is 12, so it is normal. And looking at your delta gap, since your gap is 12, the Bicarb should be 24, but his measured Bicarb is 37. So he has gained another 13 Bicarb from somewhere else. So he also has a metabolic alkalosis. Out of this, 3 can be explained by the acute metabolic compensation, and you cannot explain the rest of the 10. So he must have some acute metabolic alkalosis along with acute respiratory acidosis. However, in reality, this patient has acute respiratory acidosis with metabolic compensation and does not have acute metabolic alkalosis. So you may say that we may have taken the acute compensation, but what about chronic compensation? So let's do this ABG again. Again, we have respiratory acidosis, but now we'll compensate with using chronic compensation. So your expected Bicarb should be up by 18 to 42. Anion gap is still 12, and looking at the Bicarb gap, since his baseline is 42, but his measured is only 37, so he lost 5 Bicarb somewhere else, so he also has a non-anion gap metabolic acidosis, which we know that that's not true. Let's take another example. We have a diabetic with COPD with the same numbers. This patient develops DKA, his Bicarb drops to 30, his pH drops to 7.3, and he will compensate using respiratory means. He increases his minute ventilation, PaCO2 drops from 60 to 50, and his pH improves to 7.38. So this patient has anion gap metabolic acidosis with good respiratory compensation on the background of chronic respiratory acidosis and chronic metabolic compensation. If you're given this ABG to interpret, you look at the first 2 steps. It's a respiratory acidosis, and expected Bicarb in this case will be 25. You have a anion gap metabolic acidosis as your gap is 19. And if you look at the Bicarb, for a anion gap of 19, his Bicarb should be 17, but his measured is 30. So he gained another 13 of Bicarb from somewhere else. So he also has metabolic alkalosis. So you read this ABG as acute respiratory acidosis, anion gap metabolic acidosis, and metabolic alkalosis. However, in reality, this patient only has anion gap metabolic acidosis with good respiratory compensation. Most important thing in ABG interpretation depends upon what the baseline ABG is. So if you started at a normal Bicarb and PaCO2, ABG of 7.3, 30, and 60, you would interpret it as acute respiratory acidosis with acute metabolic alkalosis. If your starting point was Bicarb of 30 and PaCO2 of 50, you will read it as acute respiratory acidosis with chronic respiratory acidosis and chronic metabolic compensation. And if you started at Bicarb of 36 and PaCO2 of 60, this will be read as acute metabolic acidosis with no respiratory compensation. So most important thing is to figure out if patient has chronic compensation or a new acid-base issue. And this is possibly the most difficult part of interpreting ABGs. Therefore, the clinical context is the most important when you are interpreting an acid-base issue from an ABG. So ABGs should be always read with clinical context, not independently. So let's understand some basic principles first, starting with Henderson-Hasselbalch equation. And for more detail, you can watch my video How Buffers Work, where we'll explain how these numbers came to be. For those who do not like negative and logs, this is much simpler form of Henderson-Hasselbalch equation, where your H plus concentration equals 24 times PCO2 by Bicarb. If you remember, pH is negative log of hydrogen ion concentration. So a hydrogen ion concentration of 40 into 10 raised to minus 9 mole per liter gives you a pH of 7.4. Similarly, hydrogen ion concentration of 100 will give you pH of 7. This formula is pretty intuitive since your normal PCO2 is 40 and bicarb is 24. And if you put these two into the equation, you will get hydrogen ion concentration of 40 that will correspond to pH of 7.4. If you know two of the unknowns in this equation, you can calculate the third one. For example, if you have PCO2 of 60 and bicarb of 18, then hydrogen ion concentration will be 24 into 60 by 18, that's 80, and that will correspond to pH of 7.1. If you have ABG with pH of 7.2, PCO2 of 60 and bicarb of 18, that's an invalid ABG because that's not accurate. Your pH and hydrogen ion concentration are inconsistent in this case. If you don't want to remember this table, you can approximate your hydrogen ion concentration to be 80 minus last two digits of pH. So for example, if you get pH of 7.30, your hydrogen ion concentration would be 50. Understand that as you go towards the extreme, this approximation can fall apart. So let's understand the relation between pH and PCO2. The changes in pH will correspond to these changes in PaCO2 according to the equation that we just learned. So you can see that there is 10 to 12 rise in PaCO2 with every 0.1 fall in pH. Though this is approximate, as you reach nearer to pH of 7.0, you need higher amount of CO2 to drop your pH further because we are talking about a logarithmic scale. Therefore, increase in PCO2 level by 10 to 12 will bring a pH down by 0.1 and vice versa. Similarly, if you make your PaCO2 constant, the ratio between the pH and bicarb looks like this using the same equation. And you can see that the change in bicarb of 5 to 6 will change your pH by 0.1. So one to remember is change in bicarb by 5 to 6 will bring a pH change of 0.1. For example, this is your normal ABG with pH of 7.4, PaCO2 of 40 and bicarb of 24. Let's say you have a COPD patient who is now retaining carbon dioxide and his new levels are at 50. That will drop your pH to 7.3 and that will stimulate your kidneys to make more bicarb, and your bicarb will increase to 30 and your pH will come down to near 7.4. So he will be now at this chronic compensatory stage where his PaCO2 remains at 50 and bicarb at 30. Say for example you start giving him lasix and his bicarb increases to 36. His pH will increase to 7.5 and he will start breathing slowly and he will retain a little bit more CO2 to 60 and that will drop his pH to near 7.4 and he will attain this new baseline ABG of pH of around 7.4 with PaCO2 of 60 and bicarb of 36. So for the same pH you can have different ratio of PaCO2 and bicarb, and what this difference is, interpretation can be dramatically different. So always look at all the three numbers simultaneously when you are looking at ABG and not just one. Say for example, you look at the last ABG and you look at PaCO2 of 60, you would assume that this is all severe respiratory acidosis and you would like to intubate this patient. However, you know that acute rise of PaCO2 to 60 should cause the pH drop to 7.2 and not 7.3. So this patient has something more going on than acute respiratory acidosis. So let's look at our previous two patients. This was the patient with COPD exacerbation. So looking at this ABG, you can already see that if you went from PSU2 of 40 to PSU2 of 70, your pH should have dropped down to pH of 7.1. But he's at pH of 7.3, so something else must be going on. You also know that the bicarb compensation for this degree of respiratory acidosis is pretty slow. So you are possibly looking at the chronically elevated bicarb and not acute changes. So at the baseline, his pH is 7.4 and bicarb is 33. And you know that change of 0.1 of pH will be from lost carbon dioxide. So he must have started at PaCO2 of 60. So this patient is actually a chronic CO2 retainer with baseline PaCO2 of 60. So he's acutely retaining 10 of carbon dioxide and not 30. Being able to tease out this information is very useful. Initially, you would have believed that PaCO2 of 70 was from acute respiratory acidosis. However, now you know that there was only 10 increase in PaCO2 from his baseline. If this patient came with altered mental status, you would have thought that this is all from hypercapnia. However, in the new context, you are thinking that his mental status has got to be from something else because there was not enough increase from his baseline. Our other patient with diabetic with COPD, he has got anion gap metabolic acidosis as his anion gap is 18. This patient is breathing fast because of the acidosis. He's possibly having Kussmaul breathing. If you read this ABG without clinical context, you would assume that this is acute respiratory acidosis. But you know that acute respiratory acidosis happens if the patient is breathing slow, that means decreased minute ventilation. However, you see this patient is breathing pretty fast, which doesn't matches. Patients with increased dead space ventilation will also be breathing fast, and this patient certainly does have COPD. But then the patients would be having prolonged expiration time, wheezing, tripoding, etc., and this will not fit the picture. And you cannot explain the ketones in urine and anion gap metabolic acidosis if the respiratory was the only problem. So let's try to find out what happened. His pH is 7.38, bicarb is 30, and PaCO2 of 50. Since he's got 18 of anion gap, that means he must have dropped to 30 from 36. Here we are working our delta gap backwards. So 36 seems to be his baseline bicarb, and we know that at baseline these patients have normal pH of around 7.4. That should give you a PaCO2 of 60 using our equation earlier. This patient is therefore compensating adequately by blowing out the CO2. So that 50 in fact is good respiratory alkalosis as a compensation for metabolic acidosis and not primary respiratory acidosis. So if you read in clinical context, you can figure out that this patient really has anion gap metabolic acidosis with good respiratory compensation, with background of chronic respiratory acidosis and metabolic compensation. So when do you know how to look for these things? The most important thing is look at the ratio of PaCO2 and bicarb, and if they're too high or too low for pH, you're possibly dealing with some underlying chronic problem. For example, if you see a pH of 7.2 with CO2 of 90 and bicarb of 34, there's something else going on apart from the acute condition. This patient may have some underlying chronic problems. Second, the clinical picture doesn't match your ABG. Third, look out for if your patient has chronic conditions like CKD, ESRD, whether he's on lasix or he has COPD or obesity hypoventilation syndrome. Another way of figuring this out is getting another ABG at a later point of time. Understand that acute changes can resolve or change rapidly, but chronic changes will persist. You can also look at the previous ABGs if available in recent admission to get an idea where this patient sits at. So to read an ABG accurately, make sure that you look at your patient, get history, you perform examine the medication list and form a differential to figure out what's going on with the patient, and then order an ABG and then interpret it. Avoid looking at ABG first and then the patient. Check the integrity of ABG using the formula H plus equals 24 times PaCO2 divided by bicarb. You can also figure out hydrogen ion concentration by subtracting last two digits of your pH from 80. Understand that change of pH by 0.1 is brought about by change of PaCO2 by 10 to 12 or bicarb by 5 to 6. Then go ahead and perform all those 5 steps that we talked previously It's going to take you some time to get used to thinking this way, but you will get better with time. We'll do some examples in next lecture. Hopefully that should help you. Thank you.